Okay, folks, yesterday we wanted to watch something lighthearted, and we pulled a classic out of the archives that I remember seeing in theaters. 2010, directed by Adam McCay. Hour and 47-minute runtime. The Other Guys, which I was surprised that you picked this to watch. Now,
I thought I remembered laughing hysterically the first time I watched it. The second time,
not so much.
I don't know what happened.
This movie was co-written between the director Adam McCay and other recent collaborator with Will Ferrell, a guy by the name of Chris Henchy. And the director McCay also co-wrote several other movies with Will Ferrell. So he co-wrote, besides this movie that stars Ferrell, McCay, the director, co-wrote Step Brothers, Anchorman, and Talladega Nights, and Anchorman Part 2. So this movie cost between $85 million and $100 million to make, and it went on to gross about $170 million at the box office. Out of all the Will Ferrell movies of the 2000s, I wouldn't say it's the most iconic. This movie came about when McCay was having dinner with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell and noticed their chemistry during dinner, and he perceived that they should maybe do a movie together and hit up a couple of producers to come up with the script. I like this movie because it's a buddy cop movie, and if you know me, I love my buddy cop movies. Lethal Weapon, we liked Die Hard. We watched all the Die Hard movies.
Yeah.
Those movies are not necessarily comedies. They have comedic moments. This movie is just kind of silly and over the top, but there is great one-liners.
Ridiculous.
3 beloved Generation 2 Priuses were used in this movie.
Oh my.
They had a souped-up Prius with a racing engine so big they had to modify the body and put it in the back seat. Interestingly enough, the movie was made in 2009, which would have been the last year of the Generation 2 Prius.
Wow.
So, a little factoid that you didn't need to know, and if you watched my old channel, you know I too have a Generation 2 Prius that I love. 260,000 miles on that fuel-efficient hybrid. It's still going strong. So,
wow.
This movie, iconic. You got Dirty Mike and the boys. I think about that scene all the time. It's so stupid. It's so ridiculous. The way the Will Ferrell character treats the beautiful Eva Mendes that plays his wife, where he's just basically saying she's a basic boring girl. His past life as Gator the pimp.
Hilarious.
And they take away his gun for doing a desk pop and give him a wooden gun.
So dumb.
The Will Ferrell character. And the claim to fame for the Mark Wahlberg character is he's put on desk duty after he shoots Derek Jeter at Yankee Stadium by accident because he thought he was a bad guy. So the movie is just over the top. Samuel L. Jackson's in it briefly. The Rock is in it briefly. Michael Keaton plays the captain in the NYPD that their precinct that they work at. Do you want to kind of talk about the backstory of this movie, kind of what the premise is for those of you who have not seen it?
I don't know if I'll do a very good job with the premise, but yeah, you mentioned the Mark Wahlberg character. He shot that Derek Jeter guy by accident, so his career wasn't what it should have been, and he was basically demoted. And then this other guy, the Will Ferrell guy, he accidentally became a pimp, like in
his college days.
So after that, he explains later that he was afraid of getting out of control again. So he just wanted to do the most like basic
mundane job
that he knew wouldn't get him into trouble. And the best thing he could think of was to become like an accountant for the police department, like something stable, keeping law and order. And, you know, accountant is just very like...
It's, not exciting. But then he's uncovering financial crimes, and that's where the whole movie kind of jump starts. They're doing this investigation about some financial crimes, which everybody perceived as being boring, but then there's a whole criminal underworld that they expose.
And they don't believe these guys because they're kind of just like...
the downtrodden of the NYPD.
Or whatever,
right?
And the other guys are the more serious, like, believable cops, and these guys are just, like, ridiculous. And... because the Will Ferrell character can be very gullible, like when
those other two cops tell him to shoot their gun at his desk.
Yeah, and he's like, at first he's like, no, you know, I'm never going to do that. But then he ends up falling for it because he's dumb.
And I think that's what makes the movie so great is there's lots of great one-liners. It's just so cheesy and ridiculous and over the top. And I find myself laughing out loud the entire time. It's a polarizing movie. So the Rotten Tomato critic average is 79%, quite high for a comedy. However, over 100,000 audience members have submitted their audience review to Rotten Tomatoes. Their average is only 60%.
Oh.
IMDb is 6.6 out of 10. 383 Google users have submitted their review to Google for an average of 4 out of 5. And I love this movie. I think it's hilarious. I'm going to go 4 out of 5. I think it's fun. I love the buddy cop genre. It's a mindless laugh. Is it as good as like Step Brothers or Anchorman? I don't know if it's as iconic as those other Will Ferrell movies, or even Talladega Nights. Oh, you're in for a treat.
That movie's ridiculous. I remember my dad turned off Talladega Nights when they were praying to sweet baby Jesus. My dad got up and he's like, "That's enough."
When John C. Reilly's like, "I like to think of baby Jesus as a ninja fighting crime." It's so sacrilegious. That being said, what's your rating?
Dad has a sense of humor.
What's your rating on the other guys?
I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 just because I don't know if it was the mood I was in or whatever, or just the fact that I saw it before. I didn't feel like I remembered it like at all. I just remembered laughing hysterically the first time. But then this last time, it didn't hit the same. So I don't know what happened, but it still had some good laughs. I guess I just wasn't.
What would you say your most iconic moment of this movie is that you really enjoyed it?
The ridiculousness of it. Wait, the most iconic part?
What would you say the funniest part that you could think of?
Oh, the funniest part?
Mm-hmm. Something that sticks out to you from this movie.
I don't know. I mean, the Prius stuff, I guess, like how ridiculous it was that the Mike and the boys or whatever, how they were, I don't know. It's super inappropriate, but
they had an orgy.
They had like an orgy in his car,
Prius.
And it was just funny how
it's so
at
ridiculous.
one point they were like saying they were going to get the car back to be like crazy again with the car, and I don't know, it's so stupid. And then, like, the parts with his wife where he's talking about how, like, the wife is just, like, plain and, like, she's cute, but she's not hot. Like,
and then
he says,
every girl...
walk in here dressed like a hobo.
And the fact, like, Will Ferrell, like, all these beautiful women, like, fawn over him, and Mark Wahlberg, like, doesn't understand why.
And he's, like, this... You know, he plays this geeky guy who's also, like, super gullible and just does and says stupid stuff. And then these hot women just, like, throw themselves at him.
And Mark Wahlberg just doesn't understand. It's a great running joke. Oh, and the police captain, this would never fly today. But the police captain is all sad. He's like, I'm having to work a second job as a manager at Bed Bath & Beyond because my son wants to go to NYU and get a degree and come in touch with his bisexual behaviors. And he's all upset.
I missed that part.
You could never joke around about that now. Now, remember, folks, this is when 2010. So we're talking almost 15 years ago. People weren't woke back in 2010.
Not yet.
14-year-old movie. But they're slowly moving into, I don't know, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
They were priming us for that, probably. But yeah, I guess all the car stunts, like the poor cars in this movie. Yeah. I feel like quite a few cars get damaged.
They wrecked a classic Chevy Chevelle. They wrecked 3 different Priuses that were used in production of the movie.
R.I.P. the Priuses.
R.I.P. those Gen 2 Priuses.
I will say, since this movie's kind of old, I guess I can give like one spoiler moment. It wasn't, like, funny so much as there was this heartwarming moment that kind of tied everything together where Will Ferrell was talking to his wife, and he's like, I guess the reason why I pretend you're so plain and I won't acknowledge how stunning you are is because I'm afraid that if I tell you, then you'll realize, like, how amazing you are, and then you won't want to be with me anymore, or whatever. I was like, oh, I'm ready to cry.
Oh, and that so awkward scene where he's saying all those sexually explicit relay messages from her elderly mom.
Oh, that was over the top. Oh, my gosh.
And he's like, okay, go tell my wife. And then he, like, tells her in his ear that she goes back, and it's, like, so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like her mom relaying the messages because the house is being watched by, like, the bad guys or whatever, and the mom keeps coming out and, like,
meeting him in the bushes to tell him some stuff. It's so stupid.
It's so ridiculous. And then even the mom is like, okay, these messages are too personal.
I think that's what makes the movie funny, though, because it's just so silly and over the top.
Yeah, it's just insane. So sometimes it's like, okay, I'm ready to turn this off because it's just too stupid.
Do you have?
It kind of reminds me of Talladega Nights, like where he stabs himself in the leg, and he's like, I am so paralyzed. You know, it's like just so ridiculous that
it's
sometimes
their writing style. It's
almost
just silly.
offensive.
Do you have anything else to add before we wrap things up?
Not really, except for honestly, I fell asleep because I have a newborn.
Show that newborn.
I can't. I don't want to show his face,
Okay.
but I did not see the end, though. Here, I'll show his behind. There's this loving baby.
Until next time, folks. We'll see you then.